Hi, it's B, and today I'm gonna do the Unpopular Opinions book tag. I've seen this floating around for like the longest time, and I want to do it because I have opinions, a lot of them. I actually don't have any of my books with me right now. They're all over at the place where I used to live, so I'm gonna go get them soon, but that means that I can't like hold them up while I'm talking about them. Also, I want to preface this by saying I'm gonna have some negative opinions. It's kind of the nature of the tag, and if I offend you with them, I'm sorry. Alright, let's start with the first question, which is a popular book slash series that everyone else seems to love, but you don't. And I actually have a few answers for all of these questions. And for this one, my first is the Legend trilogy by Marie Lu. This trilogy is so beloved, and I've heard amazing things about it, so I picked it up with really high hopes and was let down. The first book was just okay to me. Main characters frustrated me. The plot was very cliche. It felt like something I'd definitely read before. It was stereotypical dystopian YA, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it was bad. A lot of dystopian YA is good, even if it's cliche. So I didn't think that it was terrible. I thought it was okay. I enjoyed it enough to want to continue with the series in hopes that it would get better and get epic like I had been promised. So I pick up the sequel, which is Prodigy, and that book killed me. My biggest problem with this book wasn't the plot, which honestly I barely remember. It was the two main characters. They were meant to really care about each other, but they actually hated each other. Every chapter we would get at least a paragraph where one of them was complaining about the other and saying heinous things, particularly the male protagonist to the female protagonist. It's extremely frustrating. They would always think like something really mean about the other one, and this happened again and again. I can't read a book if the main character is unlikable. And two main characters in this book were unlikable, and yet they were supposed to be in love somehow. I think I gave it like 1 star on Goodreads. I'm sorry, Marie Lu. Those books might have been good if the main characters hadn't just killed me so bad. And then the second one is 13 Reasons Why by Jay Asher. That book, I'm not a fan of it. It has a lot of diehard fans, a lot of people who say that it helped them through a hard time. That's great. It didn't do that for me. The premise of 13 Reasons Why is that there is a girl who kills herself, and she leaves a series of cassette tapes explaining why she killed herself. And every reason is a person, meaning she's blaming her death on 13 people. You don't just blame people for your death. That's insane. The main character was like in love with her, whatever, they like made out once or something, and he had a crush on her for like 50 years, and he got sent the tapes. And the whole time he was listening to them, he's like, what did I do? He was like torturing himself over this. She gets to the tape, you're the only one who doesn't really belong on this list. Anyway, and the next book after that is These Broken Stars by Amy Kaufman. I didn't hate this one. It was like a 3-star book for me. It wasn't what I was expecting because it has like this epic cover, and then it just turned into the stereotypical lower class boy, upper class girl get lost in the wilderness and have to figure out how to survive even though they don't like each other. The whole book was him insulting her and telling her that she couldn't survive without him. And she's just agreeing with him. Even though she's very smart and that's evident, she watches him build a fire and then she can build a fire. So flash forward like 5 days, she's seen everything that he's done to survive, and now she can basically survive on her own. She would struggle, but she could manage. And still he's sitting there telling her that she's basically useless and dead weight, even though she's done almost, if not as much as he has to help them survive. And she's sitting there agreeing because he's just like, well, maybe you learned something, but you're just like a stupid, privileged girl, right? Now, on to the second question. Books or series that everyone else seems to hate. I love, and I gotta bring up my old pal Twilight here. I love Twilight. I know that a ton of people love Twilight, and a ton of people hate Twilight, so this is kind of an on-the-fence answer to this question because not everyone hates Twilight. I understand that it's extremely flawed. In fact, I'll be the first to tell you about all of its flaws, but it's the series that got me into reading, so it's a nostalgic favorite for me. Next is Mockingjay by Suzanne Collins. And you're probably wondering, what is this doing here? A lot of people who love the Hunger Games trilogy didn't like Mockingjay or just thought that it generally wasn't in the same quality as the first two books, and I have to disagree. It's been a while since I read Mockingjay, but I remember loving it and for a while thinking that it was my favorite out of the three. Yes, things could have been more fleshed out. I feel like it maybe should have been longer as the conclusion to the trilogy, but I still loved it and I thought that it did the trilogy justice. And I'm like one of the few. And the last one for this question is Looking for Alaska by John Green. This might be another confusing one because a lot of people love this book, but a lot of people also don't like it because they're tired of hearing John Green's voice. In all of his books, his voice is very present and obvious, but I personally love John Green's voice. I find it intelligent and relatable and eloquent, and although it's not necessarily how a teenager would talk, it doesn't really bother me. I also quite liked the character Alaska. I know that she's not a fan favorite and a lot of people don't like her, and I just liked how the whole thing unfolded, and I just like everything about that book. Alright, next is question 3. A love triangle where the person ended up with the wrong person, or just an OTP that you don't like in general, aka a no TP. For me, for the love triangle, well, first I'm going to bring up Twilight again, and no, I'm not Team Jacob, I'm Team No One. I hate everyone. Both of these relationships with both of these dudes were supremely unhealthy and flawed. On the one hand, we have Edward, who takes out her engine so she can't go see her best friend, who has such a codependent relationship with Bella that they both wanted to kill themselves when they broke up. That's a level of unhealthy all on its own. Then on the other side, we have Jacob, who doesn't fully understand the concept of consent and who forced himself onto Bella to the point where she felt the need to physically get him off of her. And then it was all played off as a joke, and even after that, he continued to pressure her to the point of emotionally blackmailing her, saying if she didn't kiss him, then he would go die. That's insane. So neither of these relationships were healthy, but I guess I just wanted her to realize that maybe there's more out here for me than a couple of boys. And then the next one is Julian and Lena from the Delirium trilogy. She ends up with Alex, who was the boring, wonder-bred love interest in the first book. He wasn't really anything. He just introduced her to love, and in the next book, she introduced Julian, and it was just so freaking sweet, and it was the cutest thing ever, but she ended up with Alex. I'm so bitter about that. The last answer for this question is Lara Jean, John Ambrose McLaren, and Peter from All the Boys I've Loved Before, duology. It's 2 books, and in the first one, we just get Lara Jean and Peter. There's not a lot of romantic chemistry with anybody else. But she did send out a bunch of letters to 5 boys, I think, and one of the ones she sent the letters out to actually reciprocated her feelings. We meet him in the next book. His name is John Ambrose McLaren, and he's so cute, and him and Lara Jean are perfect for each other, and the only obstacle is Peter, because unfortunately she's fallen in love with Peter. So she ended up in this weird thing with Peter. In the first book, he was super hung up on his ex. In the next book, he still had a sort of thing for her, and it made me uncomfortable throughout the whole book that he wouldn't just communicate to Lara Jean what was going on. But John Ambrose McLaren was so sweet and perfect for her. I love them. So obviously they didn't end up together at the end of that book, but I still hold out hope. And then the 4th question is popular genre that you don't tend to reach for. And for this, I'm going to say mystery and horror. Because although I like a book with a good mystery, it's not I go to the mystery or the horror section. It's not for me. I haven't read any Stephen King. I haven't really read any straight up mystery novels or anything like that, and I don't think that I will anytime soon, but I'll never say never. Next one is popular character who you do not like. Alright, well, we're gonna start out with Alec Lightwood. I don't hate Alec, which is why I started with him. He's just annoying. One of those annoying teenage characters who's just full of unnecessary angst. Next, after that, we have Agatha Wellbeloved from Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, which I actually have the real copy of this time. Amazing. I hate Agatha. I think she's an extremely selfish character. In my opinion, she never did anything redeeming. She cared about Simon to an extent, but not really. She mostly just cared about herself There's just a lot about Agatha Wellbeloved that I don't like. Okay, and the last one, well, it's kind of two, but I'm mostly just going to be talking about one of these characters. This is going to be the big controversial one that I'm sure a bunch of people aren't going to agree with. Dumbledore. He is one of the most beloved fictional characters of all time, but I can't stand that man who just drops a baby in a flimsy blanket on the porch of an abusive family. And I know the excuse. He needed to be in a house with people he was blood related to, and he didn't want all the fame to go to his head, so it needed to be some muggles. Whatever. Even if Harry had to live in that house to be protected from Voldemort or be protected from whatever, he could have visited. He could have sent people to talk to Harry to make him feel like he wasn't completely alone, which he did for years and years, and could have been paying more attention. In the 5th year, when Harry was going through like the hardest time, Voldemort's thoughts were leaking into his brain, so he was like all mad and angsty and like depressed this whole year, and Dumbledore was straight up ignoring him, and he refused to let anyone have contact with him. He just lived through this extremely traumatic event of watching somebody die right before his eyes, and you don't even check in to see if he's okay, and you have the gall to say that you care about him. Not to mention the whole sacrifice thing. Dumbledore and I, we're not friends. He has redeeming qualities, I know. He was like a mentor. And the second character is Snape, which is still really controversial, but not as controversial, because I freaking hate Snape, and I don't think he redeemed himself at all. I don't really think that Snape is a good guy either. Alright, the 6th question is popular author that you just can't seem to get into, and for this one, I'm gonna say J.R.R. Tolkien. I read The Hobbit, but it's pretty short, and it took me 2 weeks to read because I just can't stomach that writing style. I enjoyed the story, I liked it, I understand the appeal, it's just the writing style that I struggle with. Question number 7 is book tropes you are tired of seeing. I've already discussed this briefly earlier in this video, but it's really common in YA for there to be a male and female love interest where one is a higher status than the other, or more privileged, or born richer, or something like that. Usually the girl who's born richer and the boy who's born poor, and usually they have to go on a quest together for some reason, and the whole time he's just being rude and doubting her and just thinking that she's stupid, and eventually he learns the error of his ways because she tells him about a traumatic event in her life, and he realizes that they're more alike than he thought, and then they fall in love. I hate that. Really difficult for me to become invested in their relationship if it starts from a place of such negativity. If you ever hear a male protagonist calling the female protagonist princess in a condescending way, chances are I'm already done with the book. Be more creative, make well-rounded females and well-rounded males. Don't just sit there and play on gender roles. All right, and then the next question is popular series that you have no interest in reading. I have no interest in reading The Lord of the Rings. I also have the Song of Ice and Fire series. I love the show. It's one of my favorite shows. The books are monsters, and honestly, it's really hard for me to get into that kind of writing style, and they're huge, and I'd rather just watch the show. And the next one is Outlander. Outlander, again, is just a big book, and it kind of just seems like romance to me, which I'm not super interested in. The last question is, the saying goes that the book is always better than the movie. Named one book to movie or TV show adaptation where the adaptation was better than the source material. And for this one, I have 2 answers. The first one being The Perks of Being a Wallflower. The Perks of Being a Wallflower is my all-time favorite movie. The book is told from a journal format, which gives us insight into Charlie, the main character, only. So because of that, we don't really get an image of the other characters besides Charlie. In the movie, we get a full sense of every character, and it's really great. And then the next one is The Vampire Diaries. I remember reading the books. I read the first 2 or 3 of the Vampire Diaries books are strictly okay, and the show is good. So there we go. And that about wraps up this video. That was the Unpopular Opinions book tag. Sorry if I took crap on the stuff that you love. I hope that we can still be friends. Alright, thanks for watching. Bye.